Golden Blooded back with another video just for you, the college football fans. So if you are a college football fan, go ahead and hit the like and subscribe button. That's all we do here every single day. And don't forget to go ahead and check out our Patreon page. I call our Patreons the shot callers because they call the shots around here. Also, don't forget to check out our website, designed and created by Joey Foster. We now have 9 great writers, led by our 2 head writers, Michael Walker and Scotty B. the Baylor King. Well, it's been a while since I've done a car video. Today's schedule is a bit hectic, so time for another car video. And it came at a perfect time. 100 days till the college football season officially starts. What do I want to talk about today? How about this? The Big 10 talking about realignment. This is a big deal. We already know the NCAA Division I Council has passed a rule that has done away with divisions. You don't have to have divisions if your conference has 12 or more members to have a conference championship. The ACC is saying they're going to a 3-5-5. The Pac-12 has done away with their divisions. The SEC is saying that no divisions is on the table. And the Big 12 has said they're putting a hold on going to divisions. And now the Big 10 is talking about it. The biggest source for this was Michigan State sports writer Matt Charbonnet, saying realignment being discussed, changes are coming this year. Not a year from now, not 2 years from now, this year. First thing on the docket, eliminating divisions. Yep, they're talking about it. They're going in the direction of the Pac-12, or at least that's what the thinking is. In other words, instead of divisions, the 2 best teams with the highest winning percentage in the Big 10 will play in the Big 10 championship. I think that's a great idea. I mean, we can even look at last year's Big 10 championship. Number 2, Michigan, who finished 8-1 in the Big 10, taking on number 13, Iowa, who finished 7-2. Of course, it was a shellacking 42-3. In the regular season, Iowa lost to Purdue and Wisconsin. If there were no divisions, and it was the 2 best teams, there were 2 other teams that had a better record, or at least the same record, and was ranked higher than Iowa that should have made the Big 10 championship game above Iowa. The first one that has an argument was Michigan State. They finished 7-2 in the Big 10, and they were number 9 at the time. Michigan State actually beat Michigan, so they would have a claim, but they did lose to Purdue and Ohio State. But the better example was number 7, Ohio State. They were 8-1 in the Big 10, just came off a loss on the road to Michigan, 42-27. So last year actually should have been a rematch between Michigan and Ohio State. And yes, Michigan beat Ohio State convincingly in the Big House. But Ohio State versus Michigan for the Big 10 championship, I would sign up for that all day long. And it would be at a neutral site. So I think it would have been a much closer game. So yes, I think getting rid of divisions, going with the 2 best teams with the best record in the Big 10 for the Big 10 championship would provide for a better Big 10 championship game. Now I will say this, they do want to protect the rivalries, and there's a lot of great rivalries in the Big 10. I'm going to go through them. If I miss any, let me know in the comments section, alright? So we have Nebraska versus Wisconsin for the Freedom Trophy. We have Minnesota versus Nebraska for the $5 Bits of Broken Chair Trophy. Never heard of that. We have Penn State versus Minnesota Governor's Victory Bell. We have Wisconsin versus Iowa, the Heartland Trophy. Purdue versus Illinois for the Purdue Cannon. Minnesota versus Michigan for the Little Brown Jug Trophy. I know they don't get to play every year. Penn State versus Michigan State for the Land Grant Trophy. Iowa versus Minnesota for the Floyd of Rosedale Trophy. Indiana versus Purdue for the Old Oaken Bucket Trophy. Northwestern versus Illinois for the Land of Lincoln Trophy. The Ohio State versus Penn State rivalry. The Iowa-Nebraska rivalry for the Heroes Trophy. Ohio State-Michigan State rivalry. Minnesota versus Wisconsin for Paul Bunyan's axe. Then, of course, Michigan versus Michigan State for the Paul Bunyan Trophy. Not Paul Bunyan's axe, but the Paul Bunyan Trophy. And then, of course, Michigan versus Ohio State, labeled as the game. I know you wouldn't be able to protect all those rivalries, but some of those rivalries you definitely would want to protect. But along with getting rid of divisions, Big 10 is also contemplating expansion. Realignment goes with expansion. Right now, here are the teams in the Big 10. In the Big 10 East, Indiana, Maryland, Michigan, Michigan State, Ohio State, Penn State, and Rutgers. For the Big 10 West, Illinois, Iowa, Minnesota, Nebraska, Northwestern, Purdue, and Wisconsin. So who could the Big 10 go after for conference expansion? I'm telling you, it is coming. Well, first things first, the SEC off the menu. Not going to happen. Don't think about it. Let's start with the ACC. First up, the 4 absolutely no's. Georgia Tech, the Hurricanes of Miami, Florida State, and Clemson. I think they're too far south, and they probably wouldn't meet the Big 10 requirements. Now, there's 6 maybe choices in the ACC. Boston College. I think academically they fit in the Big 10, but they don't bring much as far as football and basketball. What about Wake Forest? Same situation. What about Louisville? Well, the thing with Louisville is academics. They would probably need to bring their academics up tremendously. tremendously. What about Syracuse? Well, Syracuse, I think they have the academics. They have a decent basketball brand, but right now their football brand not very good. What about NC State? I think NC State is definitely a choice, but they're right there on the line. Another maybe would be Duke. They would definitely meet the academic requirements, and they most definitely have a great basketball brand, but they don't bring much as far as football. Now for the 4 yeses, the 4 teams that I think the Big Ten would go after from the ACC. North Carolina, great brand, both in basketball and in football, and they have pretty good academics. Pitt, I think they're in the same situation. Basketball not so great right now, but their football brand is looking pretty good. And geographically, they would fit right into the Big Ten. Then there's Virginia Tech. I think they fit in academically. It would stretch the footprint of the Big Ten a little far south, but not too far south. Good football brand, decent basketball brand. And then there's Virginia. Same thing. Stretches the Big Ten footprint just a little south. They would fit in academically. Great basketball brand right now, and a decent football brand. All right, now let's jump over to the Big 12. The 3 no's. TCU, Texas Tech, Baylor. Not going to happen. Wouldn't meet requirements. And I don't think the Big Ten would go after any of the new members that are coming into the Big 12. I'm talking about UCF, Cincinnati, BYU, or Houston. The one maybe, and that's West Virginia. West Virginia has thought about going after the AAU status, so we could get that. But academically, they would have to bring up their academics tremendously. But geographically, they would fit into the Big Ten. What about the 4 yeses? The 4 teams that I think the Big Ten could go after in the Big 12. Well, first, I think they could go after Kansas State. Academics there. Not the worst basketball brand and not the worst football brand. Then there's Kansas. Same situation as Kansas State, except they have a tremendous basketball brand. Not a very good football brand, though. Then there's Oklahoma State. I'm not sure if they have AAU status right now, but I know at one point they did, and they could definitely get it back. Academically, they fit in, and they would fit in with the Nebraskas, the Minnesotas, the Wisconsins, the Iowas, all those teams out west. And then there's Iowa State, and I know Iowa State just lost their AAU status, but so did Nebraska, who's already in the Big Ten. So maybe that's not as big of a deal as it was. And I think Iowa State would fit in perfectly in the Big Ten. Finally, let's talk about the Pac-12. The 4 no's. Stanford, Cal, Arizona, Arizona State. Those 4 schools, the Big Ten would not be interested in those 4 schools. What about the 4 maybes? I think there's a decent chance or a decent shot that the Big Ten could go after Colorado or Utah. It would stretch their footprint just a little more west. Decent academics. Not sure about AAU status, but again, that might not be as big of a deal right now. Then I have Oregon State and Washington State as maybes, but only if it would be a way for the Big Ten to get Oregon or Washington or both. Now here are the 4 teams that I think the Big Ten could most definitely go after in the Pac-12. Oregon. And honestly, I know for real that the Big Ten has been interested in Oregon. That would be a big brand pickup for the Big Ten. Same thing with USC. No, the Big Ten has been interested in USC. Great academics. Great brand for the Big Ten. Then there's Washington. I think Washington is in the same category as Oregon. That would be a great combo to bring in the Big Ten, Oregon and Washington. And basically the same situation with UCLA. Great academics, and that would be a great 1-2 combo with UCLA and USC. So there's definitely some options out there for the Big Ten as far as expansion and grabbing some teams either out of the ACC, the Big 12, or the Pac-12. One of those things is going to happen. I don't know which one, but one of them going to happen, guys. Y'all let me know in the comments section which direction you think the Big Ten would go in as far as expansion. Do you think they would grab those teams out of the ACC, the teams out of the Big 12, the teams out of the Pac-12, or maybe a combination of the 3? That's all I got for you for this show. Like and subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you on my next show.